We are live with Brickell Avenue area. We're going to see the Implosion, the Mandarin Oriental Hotel. Hotel built about 25 years ago. It's on the man-made island called Brickell Key. They're going to be taking this damn thing down. Can't wait to see it. Let me give you guys a glimpse of kind of where I'm at. Everybody's coming out. I want to see this tower go down. Usually we got a little bit of entitlement. Oh, look at all the boats. We got the big boats out watching this damn thing. Here we go. Let's get a glimpse of this. It's gonna be fun, assuming we don't get run over. Go. The implosion. Yeah, right over there. All right, so I'm gonna quickly drive. Walk it. Man, I see it right this. And lots of boats out. I don't hear a countdown yet. Should be going down there in a second. Miami Fish. Fired up. There's a sense of people. Yes, my good. Ready to slide. Let me zoom in. No, doesn't allow you to zoom in. Give you guys context. That's what we're looking at. Probably the future of these buildings. Same thing. On Brickell Bay Drive, that's the bay. You can see the Port of Miami in the distance. You got Virginia Key. That's where they filmed that show, Gilligan's Island. If any of you remember that, be way in the distance. Oh, here we go. You can hear some explosions. Seeing fireworks. They're definitely celebrating. Yep, that's that. See all the fireworks going off. Now it should be going. Dogs are barking. Here we go. Yeah, the building came online in like 2001 or so, right at the beginning of the century. Fireworks. Birds everywhere. Beginning of the spell. Dogs are loving it. Everybody's holding up their phone. Typical Miami, they're a little late, running behind. Somebody forgot to plug something in. All right, let's go. Yeah, looks like we got a construction delay. Better get a change order for this one. Everybody's waiting, holding up their cameras. Still waiting. We're supposed to go down at 10:30 on the dot. Looks like we're about 5 minutes late. Telling you, somebody forgot to plug something in. There we go. I don't smell anything yet, but it's all coming our way. Now everybody's gonna flee. They're doing this right on the bay with the manatee and the fish and everything else. Anybody who had VIP seats is probably regretting it right now. Huge plume of smoke. Now everybody's fleeing. This is great. There comes the everybody's on the run now. Everybody in the boats, they're all like, "Oh man, we gotta get started and get the hell out of here. It's coming our way. You gotta flee. Hurry up. You gotta dilate." Everybody's running to get away. There's the smoke. Yeah. That's probably the beginning, and we're going to see a lot of that, especially with this list stuff. These towers are coming down thanks to the condo slips. It's all coming down. See if we can get the road, make it a little bit easier while the smoke comes. Let's see if we can make our way through it. There you go. Oh, I'm starting to smell it now. I can, I can start to smell it. Typical Miami traffic. Sunday, while racing the smoke. I smell it. Definitely smelling it right now. Let's see how far away we are. There it comes. I know. It's coming. It's coming. This guy doesn't stand a chance in hell of getting out of here. These people who were stuck in traffic obviously didn't foresee or didn't read the news, or maybe they were out partying the night before. Remember, when you go out partying in Miami, you go at 11 o'clock. You don't get home till sunrise. Here we go. We got a drone over here. Nice little drone. The guy ought to be flying over the site. Not learning how to use it now. So we're heading back. So I do walking tours every Saturday. One of the things I point out when I do walking tours, I put up the balconies. You can see these balconies. These are rail. This is the cheapest form of um, balcony. Well, right up next to all cement. It's always a really good tell as to what's going on in the marketplace. You just look at the balcony rail. Rails always a tell. Traditionally, you want some glass to make sure I don't kind of get hit here. People everywhere in cars. See if we can get out of here. Got a limo. How far are we from the smoke? Oh, I don't see any more smoke. We might be in luck here. This guy's pulling. Look at the distance. You can see a tall tower. That's the brand new Una project that went up. It was put up by a developer here who is from Russia. Burning a lot of cash on towers. It's actually his third one. He did a tower called the Sony Bahia in Edgewater area. Then he had an office tower. Now he has this one. It's been a real struggle for him. But now that he's got his third one passed, probably in good shape now. Probably is going to be able to make it work. First three, though, real challenge. There's some of the new stuff going on. If you guys check out the cranes there, that's the Lionel Messi building. Lionel Messi, the soccer player, football player, depending how you call it. He's in that building. He loved it so much he bought a few of them. It's probably a B minus location. Supposed to be doing very good. If you guys check out this building here, this building about 15 years ago, it got shut down because they weren't doing the maintenance. This is all prior to Surfside collapse. People came in, government came in, shut it down, forced everybody to pack their stuff and leave, gave them a short window. And while they were gone, I'm actually going back and see where the smoke is. So once those people moved out of that building, they had to go live somewhere else. In addition to living somewhere else, they also had to um, pay maintenance fees, pay a special assessment, pay their mortgage, pay their property tax, and they go pay to live somewhere else. So they became a real challenge. So, this is a lot of old product. A lot of the stuff was built in the 80s. Or the Florida condo law came online in 1963. That's what a lot of these condominiums go forward. Part of that, it's primarily co-ops. Co-op is think of it like a corporation. You come in, you buy part of the entity. Everybody kind of gets units. They get assignments, stuff like that. Condo law gave you the ability to own your own unit within a building. That's kind of what we got in place today. Most of the buildings, although many they probably regret living in a condo simply because these condos be a little problematic. People sit on the boards, they have those different varying levels of experience and understanding. They make decisions to do with the budgets are enormous. A typical condo down here is going to have about 300 units. When we look at about conversation, let's call it $1,000 a month times 300 units. Apply that annually. You can see that's a real big budget for some people basically who are in volunteer positions. Leads to a lot of cronyism, corruption, and other things. There's a big push to try to get rid of condo associations down here. I don't really know how they would operate. The area we're in right now is the Brickell Avenue area. You can see we're right on the bay. That'll be the bridge taking you to Key Biscayne way in the distance. Then you got Virginia Key. That's where the treatment center is. That's also where Gilligan's Island was filmed. I think I mentioned that earlier. If anybody was watching, there's a sea aquarium right across the road over there. But the real issue with these condos is that it used to be the cheaper way to kind of have a place in South Florida, especially in Miami. Now increasingly it's so expensive because the cost to suddenly maintain them. After that tower went down at Surfside back in June 2021, it jacked up the costs enormously on people to the point where Bankrate now came out with a study, and they're talking about how it's 21 grand a year cheaper to rent than it is to actually own down here in Miami. The numbers are completely out of whack. Numbers got really run up during 2021, 2022, and 2023, because what happened at that point is um, you could work from home. You didn't have to wear a mask. Remember, there was a mandate in many blue states. Florida said you don't have to wear a mask. We're open for business. And then Miami Beach, we actually had a bunch of incidents of people twerking on police cars. So combination of the three brought everybody to Miami. You didn't have to wear a mask. You could work from home and you could twerk on a police car. People flooded into the market. We blew it out of proportion, 21, 22, 23. And what we've seen since then is a dramatic pullback in sales, and now prices are finally starting to collapse. As these prices start to collapse, people are under significant weight. Let's take a building like this. You guys checking this out. So you're going to look at that. And I don't know if you can notice it in the software doesn't allow me to zoom, but you're going to see rail balconies. Rail balcony is the second cheapest form of a balcony. Typically, when you see a balcony like that, what it means is the building needs to go through a special renovation. Um, uh, can be called a. They can do one at year 40 in age, or now year 30. Typically, when you do that restoration work, you replace that rail with something like glass, like you might be able to see in the distance. This is basically obsolete. It doesn't have any kind of value other than dirt value or land value. So this whole series of buildings, which went up in the 80s during a real boom associated, part of it associated with the cocaine trade. There was a great documentary called Cocaine Cowboys talking about all the money coming into Miami at the time, and that spurred a big condo development. So many of these little projects, they got put up in the 80s, some would argue because of cocaine fueled economy. They went up, they've been sitting here, they're doing okay. But now the cost of condo living because of mandates from the state as a result of the tower collapsing in June of 2021, there's a lot more transparency. There's also inspection requirements now in these buildings. These inspection requirements here are typically resulting in special assessments. So a building that's up to about 4 stories, probably looking at about $25,000 special assessment per unit. You go into a unit that's between 5 and 14 stories, you're looking at 65 grand. And if it's 15 stories or more, it's going to be about $100,000 per unit when a building hits about 30. So what that's doing is it's putting a lot of pressure on people, especially those that have incomes, and especially in a moment we have building. So this is creating a hammock market. People are heading for the exits, and as they head for the exits, what you're finding is the only way to get out of these is basically to cut price. Condos are commodities, and developers hate when I say that, but it's no different than orange juice, no different than pork bellies, no different than salty snacks, no different than anything like this. Oh, wow, if you look in the distance, you can see some of the smoke from the implosion. It's making its way in and around that construction train. You just see that construction train. I'm not again. I can't zoom on the software, but you'll see a bunch of the smoke, the dust that's coming from what was the Mandarin Oriental. So, anyways, uh, you get this implosion 5 years ago. The 5 year anniversary is in June. They put in place all kinds of requirements because the insurance industry has to know what they're insuring, and that has resulted in a significant run up in costs. Like special assessments, these are one time hits you take because of something unexpected. Think about you got a budget at your home, your car gets you have car trouble, and then you have to turn around and spend some money. That throws off your budget. That would be something like a special assessment. In addition to that, the maintenance fees have gone up significantly. Right now in Miami-Dade County, you're looking at one of these towers, probably looking about, well, not probably, but you are looking at an average of $1.15 a square foot per month. So that means if you have a 1,000 square foot place, you're in for about $1,200 a month simply on maintenance. In addition to that, you would have property taxes. Value of one of these condos somewhere in the ballpark of, let's call it 800,000. Property taxes are 2%. So 2% of 800,000, you're looking at about 16 grand a year or so. So if you divide that by 12, you add that to the maintenance fee, which is coming in, what did we say, $1,200? Then you're going to have any kind of debt service you have. So one of these types of condos, you're probably in for about 5 to 6 grand a month just to be able to maintain this with some sort of mortgage, depending on how much you put down, things like that. That's forcing people to head for the exits. Why? Because I can rent a place that's probably for about 2,500, 3,000. So the numbers aren't working. There's no fundamentals here. The cap rate, if you were to look at a cap rate on a real basic math, if you will, you're looking less than 1%, less than 1%. So that is what is triggering what effectively is going to be a sell-off. We'll see how big the sell-off is. Sell-off last go around was driven by financing. Financing was really, not sell-off, but the boom was driven by financing. It was readily available until it wasn't. Then the market pretty much collapsed overnight. We had a lot of fun back then. Had a company at the time called Concept Vulture, still have it. In fact, we're celebrating 20 years. Can you believe that? So the market was able to sell off. There were all kinds of buying opportunities. People headed for the exits. And then eventually we started building again in 2012, and we've effectively only gone up. We haven't pulled back since then. So we're nice and ripe and ready for a good pullback. But again, what's going to drive you this time is the cost of construction. Condo living, the concept that we get out ahead and got the issue. The good news we had a lot of people up this. Yes, many people whispers. They're now really wet out here because they get it on because look at what it's kind of all of the units, and how much of it that's 1.58 per unit. So you found the building with the people, and then I want you to factor in about 0.5 dollars per unit. So 300 unit building needs to be like 50 cost. The issue we have is already spaces. So green here is it's filled with land. Here we yes, notice this building over here. I'm not sure if you can make it out the wind and play. You see a bunch of bright blue. That's the work being done. That looks like some sort of balcony placement and sliding doors. Typically, when they do this work, you're looking at 6 months to 2 years where your balcony is closed. Uh, you just well, it's going to take about 1 year of labor for every 2 year, excuse me, every $2 million. If you hear about a building going through a restoration work or any kind of special assessment or anything required as a result of the surf side of mandatory inspections, it's typically, there we go, that's a good shot of it. It'll typically be 1 year of labor for every $2 million of work. So if a building gets hit with a $6 million special assessment, that's about 3 years of work it's going to take. And why does it take so long? Because they have to do them in sections. Like this one, they're replacing the windows. They're probably going to be doing the balconies. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Yeah, it looks like they're going to try to save the balconies. You guys look underneath, you'll see the all of the spray paint. Yeah, so in a building like this, it makes more sense rather than to hit everybody with a huge special assessment. It makes more sense to actually do what's called a termination, where you knock the thing down. Everybody sells from a certain set price per square foot. They all walk away. It's typically, I don't know, upwards of double what the place is worth. People walk away, developer takes it down. They're able to then go ahead and build another tower on the site. Some easy tells if you prefer building that might be terminated. If you look at these again, balconies, I like to focus on balconies because that's a real driving force. It's an easy indicator as to the condition of the building. If it's rail like this, it should be glass like that. You guys can make out the glass. Again, I can't zoom on here. That's what you want. This is what you got. It's balconies. It's aged. It's worn out. Another thing you look for is how many units. Try to pull up one of these foundations. It's a thing with trying to herd cats. If you get everybody to agree, and that's a real pain in the ass, especially in Miami with 11 ton natural results of that. So there's no side ass. So typically, you want a few units, ideally under 100 units, and then finally, on the side of a building that's likely or should get terminated rather than this restoration work, which these people are going to look at. If you look at a parking lot, you see surface parking like this one has, you guys can see people there. Maybe you can make it up. Yeah. The other side, the surface going to like any building where you basically want your parking space to where you could be into the building, that means it's upstairs. Square footage that they also could have in there. So they leave money on the table, and these few people who want to be here for emotional reasons, basically making a bad business decision. See, yeah, so got couple voters hanging out, but traffic pass. You guys get why did that take down this building? They see, let's see, they still are times. Not because I mean, it's going to be back. Supposedly they're it's Brooklyn's doing it as all one. We got here in 1979. They don't let enough space. So she jumped over to the mainland. They ended up with a mall called Brickell Center. Um, the guy who ran it all, he's since retired. And all the hasn't been so what those do is effectively liquidate all everything that they had built, blessing their upscaling buildings. It's effectively two sites here on the end of this man-made island, and they said they're going to sell. Just recently, they just replaced another one of their leaders. So they have a rookie leader heading up the company, and they're claiming they're going to go ahead and put up two towers on that site, even though the guy has no track record here doing it. The one thing about building in South, the Brazilian developer told me this, and I think he really kind of captured it. It's not about how much you make in Miami when you build a company, it's about how much you leave with. There's so many people that get at least along the way. And they have somebody with no track record in Miami. Whereas if you build Hong Kong or London or anything like that, this is a different market. Silicon Valley does that now. You might expect do it a different way. A lot of people learn here and even if they don't all rural, and they come here. And so soil is that's something that you need to not about develop this bit. So they will parachute people in to kind of figure it out. I don't know. If I was going on holiday, I would probably take me under as to whether or not the same cocktail line in tone will be estimating. So we'll have to see. But you guys get a nice little glimpse. Interesting story about this island. It's actually Dredge. Miami River separates downtown or central business district on the north and the Brickell Avenue area on the south. So what's interesting about that is Henry Flagler, the guy who brought down the train, the guy who was partners with John D. Rockefeller for Standard Oil. Well, when he came down, he set up his hotel. It's called the Royal Palm Hotel. You come down on the train, you go stay at his hotel. So it was on the north bank of the river. And increasingly, people were here and they wanted to play with the water. They wanted to use the water. So the Miami River was pretty shallow. So what they ended up doing is dredging the river. And Mr. Flagler made the decision when you're dredging the river, you need someplace to dump it. So he dumped it off the side of the river, which is where you had a guy called William Brickell and his wife, Mary Brickell, who actually knew Mr. Flagler back in the day. So supposedly, William Brickell wasn't very happy about it. Mary Brickell, the wife, wasn't happy because it stunk. All of the dredge stunk. At least that's what some of the books say. And as a result of that, it just sat there and sat there and sat there. And eventually, the spoils, if you will, was acquired. Once it was acquired, they ended up turning it into an island. It changed hands a number of different times. Ultimately, it ended up in the hands of some guy called Clotton. Most of it. So the Clotton family had it, and two towers went up, two small ones. I don't know if you guys can see them in the middle. These two towers went up. They called Brickell Key 1 and Brickell Key 2. So the island's named after Clotton's, Old Man Clotton. And then the first two projects to go up were right in the middle. They're like white and black. We're called Brickell Key 1, Brickell Key 2, hence the name Brickell Key. So it's Brickell Key is what people refer to. It's actually called Clotton Island. So Swire comes in 79, 1980. They buy most of it. They build most of it. They put a whole series of towers up, whether it's Carbonell, it's Asia, it's the Nesta 1, 2, and 3, as well as others. And then they're left with these last two sites. Great Recession comes. They jump over to this side of the water. They build up building Brickell City Center. And as I mentioned, the guy who was leading it all, he retires. They put in place somebody else whose job is to liquidate or to run. I'd compare it to like a Steve Jobs and Tim Cook. So the Steve Jobs retired. You end up with Tim Cook. He's just managing the business. He's since liquidated everything. They're north of $700 million in what they've received from the liquidation. Now the last two sites they have are effectively what was imploded today, and their storyline is they're going to put up two towers here called the Mandarin. One would be a condo hotel. The other one would be a condo. So we'll have to see how that plays out. I would venture to guess they're probably going to joint venture with somebody, or they're probably going to sell off the land. or participate in the land. And they're sitting on the sidelines, probably anticipating, like they did during the Great Recession, some sort of pullback in pricing. They want to be liquid, therefore they can go ahead and take advantage of cheap land deals. But if they don't buy any additional land, this is effectively the end of the line for Swire as it currently stands because they've sold off everything else. These are the last two sites. So you guys can make your decision. We'll kind of see how it goes. Real quickly, you see a construction site here. This is the site that the billionaire Ken Griffin, he's got a company called Citadel. This is the site where he overpaid for land, and now he's proposing to put up a $1 billion office tower. It's years late. Um, because of tariffs, I saw him say during a report that his cost of his office tower is now going to be closer to 2.5 billion instead of simply 1 billion for an office tower. So as a result of this, we've got a lot of speculation in land around the area. There's a building called the Jade Brickell. This is a building that was really popular with a lot of people in Latin America, especially in the run-up before the Great Recession. It was done by a guy called Edgardo Di Fortuna from Fortune. It was his first project. It's challenged to get financing for the build, and he had to bring in basically a guardian to help him oversee the construction. So he brought in Swire. This building was important because when it came online, it was $500 a square foot. That was a big, big, big deal. So the boys from Swire over here, they got involved with the construction over here to help Edgardo get his deal going. He's with Fortune. He's now gone on to build a whole series of towers, but that was sort of his first breakthrough project. Interesting enough, during the Great Recession, this building they were in the top three for the highest foreclosure rates in the state of Florida. A lot of mortgage fraud in here. I used to joke that the FBI basically had a field office here with all the mortgage fraud. I did a 60-minute piece with Scott Pally, the host, and we took a look at what was going on in the Miami condo market, and that's where we filmed it. So a lot of history in Miami. You look at the buildings, the heights of the buildings, the designs of the buildings, well, just everything. I'll story about what this town's all about. But what I will tell you it's all about is to show you it's all about speculation. It's all about getting in low. It's all high. It's all about selling it, selling somebody's dream from up north. And it's been going on 100 years. This is the 100-year anniversary of the peak of the 1920s Florida land boom. That peak ultimately was reached on January the 10th of 1926. There was a tall ship coming in trying to bring cargo, and it was going to be used as a hotel. And the tall ship went over. It's called the Prince Valdemar. Prince Valdemar tips over. It closes the port in Miami for 40 days. But we're not able to get any materials in. Moses. So it's saying that we're back a few months later in September of 1926. The Great Miami Hurricane hits. When the Great Miami Hurricane hits, basically ends the Florida devastation because a number of people get wiped out. And as a result of that, New York, they are going to get in. There's a book if you have not read, I highly recommend it. In the book, these developers from South Florida go up and try to convince New York. I think it was the Economics Club in New York. They go there, they make a presentation about how Miami is great and South Florida is great and not to worry. Supposedly, right after that, many of the people in attendance go and start selling it on the stock. And the author of the book, Bubble in the Sun again, that's what it's called, off the book pretends that the Florida land boom and bust is ultimately what triggered the sell-off of Black Friday, and then subsequent decisions by the presidential administration related to tariffs and other things is what ultimately took us into the Great Depression. So Miami's always got to stay good. This is we got a county hospital here called Jackson Hospital. This was the original doctor's office. This is located on the north bank of the river in the downtown area. But because of what was happening, they picked it up, they put it on a barge, and they shipped it over, thinking that it'll be fine. And now it's in the middle of this financial district. Here's a little video, a little description. This is Dr. Jackson's house, which also served as his medical office. This is where the architecture was. That roof got screwed up because the building next door was being built. They dropped some stuff on it. They had to redo all the stuff. And those days with the house. And then we're going to walk our way towards Brickell and just give you guys a glimpse. And then I will end this video of the implosion. If you guys haven't seen my podcast, encourage you to check it out. 4 o'clock every weekday. I talk condos, talk about all different types of things. Uh, Former journalist, did it for 13 years. After that, I wrote a column for the Miami Herald, as well as a publication called The Real Deal. I wrote that column simultaneously. Two different publications, two different subjects every week. Did that for 5 years. And at the same time, I work on the buy side related to real estate. Condos only. We look at condos, Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County. Little trivia note: any of you, if you remember, President Obama was going to Colombia. He sent his Secret Service sent a team in to check out what Cartagena was going to be like. This is where he was going. So the team went down there, and ultimately they ended up getting snookered in a honeypot episode at some brothel bar in Cartagena. So that brothel bar became famous, and they actually had a location right here in Miami. So it's the damnedest thing. You would go, you hear about this whole thing going on, and sure enough, they had a sister location right here in Miami at the bottom of a building called the Club. You guys look straight ahead. There's a mirror building. Yeah, it's sort of, I don't know how I would design that or describe that. A little early still for me, but let's take us back to the 1990s. There's a guy called Arnold Schwarzenegger. He did a movie, True Lies, was filmed in the Florida Keys, and the ending occurs in downtown Miami. This is the building where the ending occurs. The building you're coming out of the savings and loan crisis. There were issues going on. They basically kept a replica of an F-16 on top of this building forever and ever and ever. Then the final scene occurred right down here on the street. They blew up. I think they blew up a helicopter. Is what it was. So, any of you ever see True Lies? This is where the end of it takes place. Look at a distance. You guys will get a glimpse of some of the towers. Here we go. There's a good one to take a look at. You guys see how they got all the drapes basically hanging down the side of that building? It's a building called the 1050, 1060. That building came online in about 07, done by a New York developer called Gary Barnett. That was Gary's one and only project down here. Came down here, it didn't work out very well for Gary, so he headed back to New York. That building had a lot of controversy recently because the condo association members alleged there was all kinds of, let's say, funny stuff going on with the numbers. They voted out the board. They were supposedly pursuing all kinds of actions with the state against some of the originals. We'll see what ultimately happens with them. That's called the 1050, 1060. If you guys do some math, comes online in about 06. What are we at now? About 26, about 20 years. Every 10 years, you're getting a special assessment. And this is what it looks like when they do that. Remember, $2 million of work translates into 1 year of labor. 1 year of labor. There's a good shot of the messy building. So this originally was going to be two towers done by a Mexican group. It was called Capel at Brickell. They ultimately, that developer ended up dying, had a heart attack on the golf course and died during the run-up to the Great Recession. Building complex ultimately never gets built. Another group buys it out of China. The Chinese group ultimately flips it to a Latin American developer. That Latin American developer is putting up what they call the Cipriani. That's going to be the Cipriani. That's where Lionel Messi has bought his units. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll give these guys units, so they give them a significant discount on article marketing, or to let it be known that something is going to be happening. And as a result of that, they can peddle the units. Are condos really commodities? Absolutely. They're just glass, they're rebar, they're cement. What gives them the value ultimately is going to be the marketing. That's the real value. Used to be location, 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 but because of what we're going through as a result of the Surfside condo collapse, the age of the building is now much more important. The age is going to indicate what the cost is going to be, how well it's been going, the building's going to endure, whether or not you can do certain things, whether or not you can use your balcony, whether or not you can go out on your swimming pool. The location doesn't really matter as much right now. I'm sure it will again while we go through this cleanup process. But right now, you guys are looking for a condo, focus on the age of the building. It's a good little building. This will give you a nice little comparison. I keep talking about, I was telling you guys about glass. So notice these balconies. These are all glass. You look over here, we're going to have some glass on that side. Same building. Then we got rail. See the rail? See the glass. That's the difference. This building, just looking at it, you can see they were chinching along the way. And as a result, they couldn't afford to put all glass in. Take a look at this parking garage. Not necessarily the highest and best use if you're trying to maximize the value. So that thing was actually a rental. They filed some paperwork Takes about 6 months. Today it costs about 200 grand. And all of a sudden you have the creation of a condo. So they filed some paperwork. They turned it into a condo. They sold them off. Units were going for between 5 and 800,000 a door. During the downturn, we were buying units for one beds were going for 60 grand a door. Two beds were maybe 100,000 a door, but they had sold retail for five, six, seven, $800,000. So when we unwind down here, it's always a dramatic way. So just goes to show that trees do not grow to the moon, at least from our perspective. It's other clumps. Very good. You guys can see in the distance that building with drapery. That's the project that's undergoing restoration work. Yeah, so it can become a little bit challenging to cross over the street. So typically, when you're a developer, you're going to put up two towers. What you want to do is build on the crappy site first, and then you follow suit with the good site, so you can get more of a bump. Here's a woman who's credited with pretty much setting up in or setting up out of the developer office, or let's say um, brokerages that do not work for the developer, but simply are contracted by the developer. So she set it up in the 60s. So her office is right down the street. She's getting up there in age, so they dedicated to her. Her family is still actively involved in condos down here. But typically, what you do, going back to it, if you're a developer, put up with two locations. You put up the first one. That one is probably going to be the first site, and then you follow suit the second site because you get the pricing from the industry, right? So this was going to be a two building complex. That one over there that I'm showing you is called Infinity number one. This is going to be Infinity number two, and then the market changed. Developer ends up unloading the site for number two at a deep discount. Buyer comes in, of the land comes in, flips it to the related group. They put up this project, which is called SLS Brickell. But then something funny happened along the way. And if you don't know SLS, it's a hotel brand of the West Coast. Something funny happens along the way. The SLS brand gets dropped. Remember, when you go into some of these buildings and they have a name, it's just a licensing agreement, and it can be terminated, especially if the building runs into trouble. Bankruptcy judge can do that relatively easily. So understand that if you're buying a brand condo. And then finally, you check this out. This was the grade school. Still is the grade school. But this is a small little grade school for the neighborhood. Expensive dirt. Definitely some expensive dirt. Um, this addition you have over here, that used to be the recess area. So, sorry, just having to pump the dog. This is where the basketball court was. This is where the recess was. But because of the growth down here, um, they've expanded it. There's also other schools. Real quick, before we kind of wind this down, by the way, you're looking at the Metro Rail and Metro Mover. Metro Rail will be the train. Metro Mover will be a bus on tracks. So, real quick point, 1963, Florida condo law comes into place. 2000, fast forward to 2000, we have the dot-com bust. We have the election of George W. Bush. Remember, we got the 526 votes or whatever it was that separated Miami-Dade County. Ultimately, Bush beats Gore, becomes president. Bush comes in. He wants everybody to own their own home. They make financing readily available. It starts to flow in a big way. And we get hit with September 11th. We got interest rates at zero. The market is kind of finding its space. People from Latin America view Miami as the capital of Latin America. Some will say it, financial capital of Latin America. They start coming up here. Financing's available for purchase as well as construction. They start coming up here. They start bidding things up. Developers start going forward. And you only need a 20% deposit to buy a condo back then. So you get that 20% deposit. As a developer, then you're able to go forward. You put in some of your own equity, you get investor equity, then you bring in financing. All of it comes together, and we end up blowing up in terms of the popularity. So in this downtown area we're in, we had 11,500 units that were built from 1963 to 2001. A boom that begins in 02, we add 22,000 units in a market that had 11,500. We had 22,000 units, ultimately taking the total in greater downtown Miami, which would be the Eddie Rickenbacker Causeway down here where we were. That's I-95 in the distance, all the way north of Julia Tuttle, which is like 36th Street, and in the Bay. We go from 11,500 to 33,000. And market crashes. They start building again in 12. And where do we stand today? On that 11,500, which went from 1963 to 2002. Then we added another 22,000, which took us to 2011. We were in at 33,000 in 2011. Now we've just broken the 60,000 unit mark. 60,000 units, some of which aren't going forward. There was just an announcement, a project called for the Mercedes-Benz. It was a branding situation. Developer comes in, doesn't really have a name, gets a name brand, sort of sign off for the project so he can peddle them. Just got hit with an $80 million foreclosure, plus all of the fees and penalties and everything else that's sort of associated with it. So just because you got a big name associated with your project doesn't necessarily mean it's all going to go without problems. And as the affordability issue starts to kick in, as people start to back out, you start to see real pain, and then the discounts really occur. So I'm at the Brickell Publix. I'm going to pop in there, rinse my mouth out because of the dust of the Mandarin Implosion. But then after that, I'll get back. I'll be posting something later today for our newsletter. We always put out a newsletter on Sundays called the Miami Condo Market Intelligence Report. Let's bring you back to me, and I will sign off, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm not going to say it's a great video, but it was a moment in time. So thank you for watching. And don't forget, I do podcasts weekdays, 4 o'clock, MiamiCondo.club. I'm Peter Zalewski, condo consultant, expert witness, founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. A little bit early, so I'm not as energetic as normal, but let that caffeine kick in, and I'll be ready to rock and roll. Have a good Sunday, everybody. Take care. Ciao, ciao.